One, two. Testing the microphones. Check 1, 2. Can you hear me? Is my voice loud enough? Loud enough. Loud enough. Oops. Spike into red. Check, check. Okay. What are we doing? Let's explain. Well, I gotta turn off the music. Just for right now. So I can guarantee people can hear me. So, welcome to day 1 of a new study group. It's called the Daily Study Group. I thought of this name today. Basically, excuse me, I have my monitor on still. Check. Okay, so basically, the Daily Study Group is going to be an hour-long study session that I'm going to do on live stream, and I'll be talking through the study session so that if you want to do a daily study session, you can follow along and we could do the study session quote unquote together, even though we're not physically doing it at the same time. You'll feel like you're doing a study and getting to listen in with a group of people, even though you might not be able to. So the reason we're doing this, and I say we, there's a guy named CJ Marsh. He's part of the Daggers group and CG Hub. He and I got to talking last night, and we were discussing how Crimson Dagger started as a study group, and I don't know how much regular daily study people are doing kind of as a group. So we want to kind of bring that back, at least between me and him and a couple other people. We've got a Google document started where we're going to kind of put down notes and lesson plans. There's 4 moderators to the group. I got to wait for the other guys to let me know if they're down with... I know they want to study, but I want to find out if they want to be kind of a moderator for it. They're basically going to make other lessons, and every day it's an hour long. Ideally, the way it's going to work, me and CJ at the very least are going to live stream our study session and talk through it. And if you can't get online when we are, you can follow us later during the day or the next morning and follow along at your most convenient time. So there's not going to be a regular time set, because right now both of us don't have a good schedule to keep a regular thing going. But in a couple months, I'll be able to do like every morning at like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. We'll do a study session. But that won't be for a couple months. And so until then, we're going to be doing this on the live stream, and people can follow along at their earliest convenience. So that's going to be how it works. Today's we're going to start real basic right now. Like, I thought of the lessons just off the top of my head, and as the other people join in with the Google Doc, we'll add in some new things. But it's only going to be an hour long, and excuse me. Today's going to be pretty simple. It's today is a black and white photo study. So let's quickly do the intro. My name is Miguel Coronado. I'm from Austin, Texas. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/IIIMCIII. Or you can find me on YouTube at Mike086, where I'll be putting these study group videos up on my web channel, on my YouTube channel. My website's www.mciii.net. I'm on the Crimson Daggers group as Mike086. I'm an illustrator living in Austin, Texas, trying to make it big, or make it big, trying to just make art for a living. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from an illustration standpoint. So there's some things that are a little different between, illustration and concept art. But just so y'all know, I'm focusing on illustration. Let's get going. So today it's just going to be a photo study in black and white of a plaster cast. It's going to be an hour. You got to find a good photo. If you don't know where to go to find a good photo, I'll tell you right now. I got a Pinterest I set up that has a bunch of these photos already picked up. So if you find, excuse me, if you find me on Pinterest, let me close this up real quick. If you find me on Pinterest, you just search my name, Miguel Coronado, III. You can, I've got this board, excuse me, and it's called Photo Study Board. And it's got some photos that I picked out that I know would help me if I'm going to do a photo study. We're not always going to do photo studies, but we are going to be doing some still lives. And one of these we'll do, let's say day 3 we'll do a master copy. Just to do it. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so you go to the photo study board on my Pinterest, and there's a bunch of it's mainly plaster casts. Okay, got it. And it's some environments with some good lighting, like dramatic lighting. And lots of the plaster casts I have, and there's also fabrics. Some fabrics with wrinkles and draping. But the plaster casts have some good lighting, kind of like from 1 or 2 sources. That's not really flat. It's pretty directional, so you can really kind of read the forms. But just go on here and pick out whatever image you want and do a study of it. If you want, ideally, you should do the same image like I'm doing. And that way we're all working on the same thing. We can kind of compare notes. So, right off the bat, I'm thinking either this head or this torso here that's coming out of this plaster. It's this one's pretty cool. It's got some good curves and shapes. The rest of the page isn't loading, so that makes my choice even easier. And there's a workflow, kind of like how I do the studies, that I'm going to this is how I like to do the studies, and we'll be doing actual still lives, but those are going to be a lot different because everyone has to do that on their own. Like, you have to find your own objects, put your own light up, and we'll get to that later. But since this is the first day, it's easy for all of us to follow along with one photograph. So, if you've never done this before, or if you're just starting out, just copy and paste. Go into Photoshop or your preferred drawing program, or you could do traditional. Just up to you. Doesn't matter. I just created a new document, pasting the image. So basically there's a few ground rules for when I do studies, like from photos, and then whenever I'm working in Photoshop in particular. And my first ground rule, just for this daily study group, is that I'm only going to spend an hour on this. So I might, at a certain point, come back another day and work on it some more, or I might just do the study for an hour, try and pick up everything I can from it, and then I'll go on to something else. It's just the idea that we're doing it for an hour each day is what's important, because that adds up, We're doing 7 hours of study a week, technically. So think of it as we're going to class for one day out of the week. and having like an intensive study session. Anyway, everyone's going to be at different levels. Everyone's going to be at different places. Let me get this going. So, starting a new document. It's the same exact size as the other document. Okay. Excuse me. So there's certain things that you can do that we're not going to do. And there's certain mindset you got to be in, right? So I'm going to stay pretty zoomed out. I'm not going to zoom in. I'm only worried about values. And this photo isn't black and white, right? Because you can see like there's some color from the outside atmosphere. And for today, for only today, we'll worry about, I mean, we'll do it other days too, but today we're going to just worry about black and white. So I'm going to first just go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. And that way I'm working with the pure black and white image. And we're not going to worry about color today. And if this is your first day doing a study, it's going to help you out. All you got to worry about black and white. There's, let's see, the ground rules for myself, and I suggest people follow along with this. You don't have to. I've seen other people not do this, but it's fine. I'm not going to use like any Photoshop tools except for the brush and the eraser, probably. And really it's just going to be the brush tool. So what that means is excuse me. Sorry, hold on, I got this thing. I'm only going to be using the brush. I'm not going to be using the lasso tool. I'm not going to be using like the marquee tool. I'm not going to use the gradient tool. I'm not going to use any of these tools. I'm going to do this kind of traditionally, as traditional as possible. I've got a brush set that I picked up. I don't know where this brush comes from, but it kind of has this texture. It kind of looks like charcoal. I mean, it only looks like charcoal because I set the color to black, but you can kind of see how it has this little texture going on. It's not completely smooth. I'm going to use this brush just because it kind of gives me that look I want. Traditional medium. I've got two variations of it. If you're wanting to find a brush like this, just Google search Jamie Jones. I think this is part of his brush set. But he's got a bunch of traditional brushes. And when I say traditional, I mean he's got a bunch of like very textured, traditional looking brushes. Here's another one. So anyway, these are just chalky brushes that I'm using. You don't have to use this. The other option is to just use a hard round or soft round set to pin pressure to opacity, and just use this the whole time. But stick with one brush. Don't switch out. And when we're going to start, we're just going to stick with that one brush and just get to work for an hour. Okay? So I'm going to set a timer. And excuse me, I'm trying to... Okay, so sorry. Sorry. Hold on a quick, I gotta do something I know this is really inconvenient for everyone, but well, it's not inconvenient if you're watching this later. Just fast forward it. But if you're watching this live, it's inconvenient. But hold on real quick. Okay, let's see. We'll keep the music on. I think that's gonna work. Check mic. Checking my mic. Hopefully people can hear me. If not, you know, let me pull up my live stream. Oops, that's not the right one. My live stream window's closed. Ah, there we go. Hey, great, there we go. CJ. Great, okay, people are here, awesome. My chat doesn't work in the damn desktop. Let me pull the chat over. Great, perfect. People are actually watching live. So anyway, I had to take a phone call, sorry about that. Got the chat here. Let's get going with this. I'm going to set my alarm. So in an hour, I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to go about my day. But anyway. Let's figure out. I got my chalky brush set to black, set to white. Starting my timer, hour go. So one of the important parts of these studies, I feel like for most people, is that once you start moving your pencil or your stylus, that you don't stop. Just keep moving it. Don't stop and sit there and wait. This is digital. It's kind of like painting, so you just paint over whatever you mess up on. You don't need to flip it over and stuff. And use like the eraser tool. Press X. It's faster. And quickly block in the shapes, the overall shape of what it is we're studying here. Now I'm going to correct this as I go along, and it's not going to look absolutely 100% perfect. I'm going to focus on certain areas over others, and when I do studies, they don't often look like a photoreal or anything. If I'm really trying to study material, I'll do that. I'll make it look like exactly like the material. But in this case, we're studying the form of the light. So we're going to go back and forth carving out these shapes. And just keep your stylus moving. So an hour of constant motion is going to help everyone. Some people think that they're not as fast, but it's all about being productive. and we'll be doing other lessons along the way. So those will include master copies and color photo studies and still lives. The still life stuff, that's going to be like you gotta trust. I mean, it's up to whoever and whatever you want to draw, so that's a little different. But like the master copies and the photo studies, there's a way that I go about color picking that I feel like I've actually explained it before to somebody. I did it on a critique. I explained how to it's just basically pick out the colors and double check yourself as you go along, because part of the color photo studies is that you're trying to eyeball the colors without having to color pick. So that's one of the important parts of that that kind of study. And see, I gotta talk for an hour. That's the other thing. So I'm trying to just make up for not just putting music on. That way, if you're following along later today, you'll feel like I'm doing this with you. But yeah. CJ, whenever you do yours, just understand that it's hard to talk for an hour straight about while you're trying to draw. But it's like it's a good, because then people could listen in and feel like they're with us. They're part of this group. And the other part of that is that if you're doing this at if you're like in New Zealand and you're doing this in the morning and we're like asleep, then you don't have to feel like you need to catch up with us or try and do this at the same exact time. So here's something that, like right now, what I'm picking up as I'm doing this, I got this really dark value here that's like way too dark for what it needs to be, but I'm starting to see the forms take shape. As I start seeing the correct values match up with this photo, I'll color pick out the value within my image. So like at first it was just black and white, and all the values you saw was just from pin pressure. But as I started seeing some more correct values, I kind of isolate those and then brush those in, and then kind of go back and carve out the shapes better. Spend a little more time on creating the form. And the other thing about these photo studies, it's kind of dangerous, is when you don't have a photo to study and you start looking for one, and then your study session turns into, I spent an hour looking for a photo online that I wasn't like. You start looking for the perfect photo to study rather than just picking one out and doing it. And there's some good, like, there's better photos than others. Like, you got to really be kind of picky, because the lighting in the photo and the color kind of matters. It's not like life. And then when you're doing studies from life, you got to kind of set up your lighting. You don't always want to do the same lighting scenario, so you got to have something. And it's also kind of boring if you do the same lighting scenario over and over again. We just keep moving with the pen, though. Keep moving and keep carving out, and you're going to start seeing little mistakes. Like I'm seeing where I messed up on certain parts. I'm just painting over it. It's no big deal. Like I'm not trying. Like in an hour, I'm not going to get this to look absolutely perfect. But I will get an area of it to look nice, just because that's what I like to do, at least. But I normally always have my pin pressure set to opacity, so that the levels of value that I'm putting into this picture are dependent upon how I'm pressing against the stylus myself and the Wacom tablet. And recently, I got like an iPad this December, and I've been able to kind of pull up an image. If I don't really want to set up all the lights and everything, I'll pull up an image and study from my iPad, just like right next to my sketchbook, and just sit there and like have some coffee, and just I'll spend like a good couple hours just drawing either a cast or you know, something like a fabric, draping fabric, and you know, the more time you spend on it, the better, because like we're doing this hour sessions for the sake of, I mean, for the sake of like time. Like we're not going to spend all day studying. At least I can't spend all day studying. Some people can. What's cool is that later on, once you get these videos going, some people that are starting out could literally spend all day doing like hour-long sessions, and they'll be able to just like basically take free lessons. And it's kind of no hair off our back, because we already got the benefit of the lessons. Like by the time these lessons have kind of built up on like YouTube, people can just watch them take the lessons, and then we'll have already benefited from taking them ourselves and just doing them. So, you know, it's just like someone looking through my old notes or something. I'm getting kind of nitty gritty in this little area. It's kind of where my, as far as this photo is going, it's kind of where my eye is drawn to, because it's like the darkest part, near some of the lightest, like the most contrast here. There's little bits of contrast here and there too. Oops, there we go. One thing you can do if you're going to do a longer photo study is you can double check your values. So come over here. Well, first look at your photo, you know, then come back to your image, color pick out, like I'm going to pick the gray here. We'll see how close we are. And right now I know that we're off. So if we look at the, we open up this color picker, it says that my gray is at 43%. I'm at 43% black. The color pick here, it says 26% black. I got it backwards, I'm sorry. It's like, it's 26% white. Because, you know, 26% white would mean it's darker. Anyway. So you color pick like your image to double check values. So like this big area here, let's take a color pick. It says 73. I'm looking at this window right here. It says 73%. So okay, I come back to this image, color pick. It says 92. So 92% white. You gotta think of it that way. So it's a lot lighter. So this is lighter than this right now, and it's kind of hard to tell, but we'll get it there. You know, part of this is like kind of building up the values. And this is the way I do digital painting now. When I draw, I do lots of line work, but when I digitally paint, I'm just working with blocks of form, blocks of shapes and tone. It's easier for me now too. And I used to sculpt like prosthetics and masks. So there's this idea of like wrapping the forms that you probably heard about over and over again. And it's easier for me to think of it that way, of like I'm kind of uncovering this image. And this is a great image to actually say that, because it's literally kind of like a body being uncovered in rock. But you know, that's kind of like how you should think about it. Like I'm carving into this image of this torso. So, with the exception of me pointing over to the other image on the document, remember that we're trying to keep our pens moving, keep the stylus moving the whole time. If you're following along with us later, you just keep drawing. Don't don't stop. And I mean, if you want to color pick or something, that's different. That's like you're kind of double check. It's like double checking your math, kind of double checking your eyesight that like you pick the right value. And those numbers are pretty exact. I mean, they're always going to be kind of exact, so you'll have like this exact measurement of what it is you're looking at. So I'm noticing there's like this lighter value right here by the neck. It's just lighter than this value next to it. So I'm going to add that in. It's like right here. And if you're looking for this image, if you came into the session late, there's a photo study board that I have on my Pinterest account. If you just look my name on Pinterest, you'll find it. But this image is in that photo study board, and ideally we kind of I'm not looking at the chat, so if anyone's talking to me, by the way, I haven't seen anything you said. But CJ, you, and a couple others I invited to that Google Doc. So if you and I want to switch up, or if anyone wants, if any of the four of us want to switch up what the lesson is, or like in the coming weeks switch up the lesson to kind of focus on something that we want to like get some practice in, we'll do that. We'll just kind of switch it up as the group wants, and then I'm assuming at some point some people are gonna, like some random people are gonna have requests that we kind of do a group study of a particular subject, and we can do that later on too. Well, I didn't put down yet, there's no composition studies, composition breakdowns. Excuse me. And I've got a way that I do that now that I've really enjoyed, that we'll go over another day. And yeah, so then people could kind of get some practice in composition. I got this book called Framed Ink that I'll read from, and I'll try and see if I can't formulate some studies from that, some practices. So right now I know that the distance from here to here on the image, if you didn't see that, so I'm over here on the actual photo image. The image from, let me get it red. The distance from here to here is not the same in my image. So I'm going to go back to my image and fix that. I'm just going to take the gray and like find out, kind of eyeball where I think it is, right around here. Cut that out, and then there we go, and I can work from here now. The value on this top left corner is slightly darker than the value right here in this little triangular nook. And you'll see what I'm doing. I'm taking this midtone, I'm just going to add it in here. Kind of randomly. I'm not worried about the texture right now. We're not worried about making it look exactly like plaster yet. I mean, for this hour study, there's only going to be a few parts I might read as the plaster. It'll read as plaster, but it won't look like perfectly rendered plaster. But it doesn't need to right now. And at least for me, I'm not doing this as a material study. If it was supposed to be a material study, we'd focus on one area and really get it to look exactly like the plaster. But right now, there's no need for that. For me, in my mind. You might actually be doing this study at a later time, or like right now, thinking, I want this to be kind of a material study and a lighting study. And if that's the case, then by all means, focus on that. And, in that case, pick out a little area you want to really knuckle down on, and you sit there and make it look like real plaster. And that's just about adding in all the little variations that you see. So, like I said again, there's going to be variation from this photo in my study image. I'm just focusing on the forms and making sure all the values read where I want them to. And I mean, ideally, I'm going to get faster and, you know, we'll actually like knock out like an image like this. But right now, I don't think I'm going to get to that point yet. And then along with this study sessions, everyone should kind of pick out a goal for themselves. You don't need to say it or anything. You don't need to make it all like kumbaya, here's my goal, but kind of have something in mind that you're kind of shooting for professional in your professional career. Because even if you're starting out, I mean, your goal could be that I just want to get better technically, and you have that in your mind as you're doing these, and figure out what exactly you need to do to achieve that. But the studies are a kind of a, you should always do the studies. The way I've been doing them too, I've been doing it at random times. Like if I miss the studies in the morning, I'll do them in the evening. Like when I'm watching TV, I'll kind of be sketching on. I'll take like a lot longer and just sit and draw in my sketchbook with like a cast open, or like I might set up an actual object and draw the object. I'm just now noticing that this is like way off. So like you could use like the transform tool or the warp tool to fix this, but we're trying to train our eyes to just pick this out and just our hands to go in here and quickly correct it. Like, I mean, when it's your own piece, like when it's an actual client piece or your own illustration piece, I would go in with just like the warp tool or something and fix it real quick that way. But for the purpose of the study, we're not going to use those, because it's using a tool rather than building our own skill set up. So my girlfriend started watching my live stream. She only lasted 5 minutes. She's an actress. Okay, so let me take a look real quick. What I'm seeing here now is that there's some subtle variation in the neck that I'm not really achieving yet. There's like it's like gradation just coming along here, and I want to get that in there. And there's also like an overall subtle gradation from the top of the neck down to here. It starts dark and then it fades, and it stops. And there's this bright line where the clavicle, I believe, is. So we're going to add that in, and we'll do that. Oh, I got this like line appeared. So we're going to just add in this darker value. Try and subtly bring it in. The brush I'm using has some really sharp edges, so it's a little harder for me to get that subtle variation, but it's not impossible. They just take longer. And now anyone else, like, there might be different ways of doing this. Like, other people might think that using the one brush and not using certain tools is silly. But think of this as like a classical study. Like we're just training our hands and eyes to cooperate. This neck is too bulgy. Okay. So, I mean, normally I don't talk during, like when I do a study on my own, I'm not sitting here talking to myself too. So this is just me doing this so that you can hear what I'm thinking about as you go about your study. And it's kind of my way of giving you live notes. Like I'm not going to physically go back and make notes over this drawing. That's just silly. For me, it's just silly because I have other things I got to do. But there's certain things we'll pick up. I've got the brush size on my Wacom set to I have a wheel. I have a Wacom 5, Intuos 5. So if you're noticing how my brush size just keeps going up and down, you don't hear any clicking, it's just because I'm using the wheel. Just in case anyone's wondering. I pretty much have it just like my fingers on this wheel going back and forth from the sizes, and as I need it, I just kind of adjust. Now there's a really dark value here because it's like a chipped piece of plaster, so we got to add that in. Right here, about here. Then we got these lighter values right next to it, like right here, and it kind of makes a triangle out. Just every now and then, I mean, keep your pencil moving, but every now and then kind of take a really good look at your reference or your study material, and just see if everything's actually lining up. If something looks off, there's always a way to fix it. So like right now, this curve here and the neck, this like shape that's being created, it's not the same on mine. So I'm going to go in and kind of fix that a bit. There's like this kind of a straight line right here almost. It's not straight, but it's almost straight. So I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to take a quick moment to check the chat, just really quickly. Where is it? Can I have the image you're copying, please? Yeah, just search Miguel Ciara idea on Pinterest, and I have a photo study board. You'll find it in there. You just go to the photo study board and it'll come up. I think it's, yeah, here it is. So actually, what am I doing? Here y'all go. I'm gonna actually just link it to you. There you go. That's the image. Okay, back to this. So what I'm noticing now too, that there's this gray value here, and it right here it transitions to this lighter gray, and then that lighter gray kind of continues all the way down the form. So I'm gonna just take this and just like really just brush it in here and try and recreate that curve and that shape. There we go. That's it right there. Kind of. It's kind of dancing around that shape, but anyway. So now there's some chiseled, broken shapes here. I'm gonna put those in. This music is D'Antoni Parks, if anyone was wondering. D'Antoni Parks. He's an amazing musician. I like his music. And then later today I'm going to I'm going to try and get these videos on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, so they'll be saved somewhere once livestream decides to delete them. So ideally, these videos will always be up for other people to follow somewhere, you know. There we go. Just kind of carving out these forms here, and there's like broken chiseled texture that's going on that I'm trying to recreate here. So one thing what I'm doing here, kind of unconsciously and consciously, is that I'm focusing on this chiseled area because I already kind of focused on some of the smoother areas here. So now I'm gonna just give this other texture some time to play around here and excuse me, get it to look good. So this has got a good variety in regards to like the smooth versus the rough. And you could spend all day just doing the side bits on this picture if you wanted to. We'll figure out a day to do a long study too. Maybe on the weekend, like just do like a long study in the morning and then go about our weekend. 'Cause some people, I still like to relax on the weekends and not do a lot of work if I can help it. I try not to do a bunch on the weekends. So I do a lot more like live stream critiques, or I will be. I'll get back into those on the weekends more so, and then but anyway, we'll do like a long study session where we'll just spend a couple hours drawing one of these things. And we'll use the photos for that just because it's easier for everyone to follow along on the same subject. Or at least I will. I mean, CJ and other people, we could do whatever. I mean, but eventually I'll do like a long session where we'll just follow along slowly with a photo like this, and just kind of commentate, and narrate what's going on in our heads. That way, other people get a kind of a window into they get a window into what we're thinking about. And so one thing I'm noticing right now, this gray value here is like the same as the gray value in here. And we can test it by color picking, checking the color picker. It says 58%. Check the other value. It says 61. So it's really, really close. From 58 to 61. And I color picked this. I still don't want to color pick from the photo just because it doesn't help me. It doesn't help me learn and to use my eyes properly. The other thing I'm noticing is this gray here. There's let me get a red. There's a gray value here that looks like it matches the gray value here. Right? It looks about the same, or like right here. So I'm going to be pulling that same gray value from in here on my drawing and putting it right outside. I'm on the wrong drawing. Here we go. There we go. Take this gray value, put it on the outside to fix the shape of it. It's not matching exactly, or it's not as close as it could be. Okay, so the other swatch of color I'm noticing, so this, if we look at the photo, we've got a value here to here. It's almost the same the whole way through, right? And then likewise, I'm kind of like partitioning out the value areas that are on this big shape. There we go. You can kind of see how the values change and alter. So that's what I'm paying attention to as I look back and forth. So let's just pick out this gray here, and we're going to carve out that shape. And this goes all the way to here. So that's the other thing. So I'm making some like mental reference points when I'm doing this. So like, if you notice the edge of this photo, this shape here. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. This shape here comes to a point right there, and the curve of this arm kind of apexes like right around this area. So like the point and like the furthest part of the arm is right here, kind of like right next to each other. So when I look at my drawing and see the furthest part of the arm, and I can see that the point is a little higher, I could adjust, make that match. So those are the kind of reference points I'm putting in my mind as I do this. And I'm using those as my guides to like to see if I'm like way off. Distance here is a little. Okay, so this shape here needs to be narrower on my drawing. So I'll do that by just taking that general value and blocking it in. Okay, so kind of back on track now. Fixed some little issues. There might be some, see, something keeps coming off on my drawing, and the reason that is because there's other issues that I'm not looking at. So like this shape up here is slightly off. I can tell the curve's off. The curve should be like here. Something like that. And part of this, like, when you have to like pick out these issues and fix them, like this noodling around, that's like some of the best parts of the study, because that's when you're really fixing issues. Like, you gotta figure out why you didn't draw it the right way earlier. Like, what's the reason? Like, we can go about this study a little differently too. Normally, it's good to block out these values pretty fast and then kind of correct them, and then you go in and do some of the detailing. I've been kind of jumping back and forth, but it's up to you. I mean, it's up to the way you think and the way your mind works. This is further back here, and then this curves like that. The arm has a subtle little curve here. So remember, we've not done any line. Like, I've come in really tight with some darker values here, and I was putting them in earlier, but we haven't really done any kind of line work at all. And that's something that this study method, we're not focused on line. We're not constructing this image. We're like we're just trying to replicate it, and these little reference points are picking out are what are going to help us. Okay, let's see if I got that right. That looks a lot better. Okay, so anyway, the golden rule for this kind of stuff though is like, if something looks off, and you normally know if something looks off, like you can normally tell yourself something's wrong with this image. Like you might say it silently and not say it out loud, but if you ever feel that way, it means there's probably something off, and there's a way to fix it. There's always a way to fix it. You just got to figure out what it is. Okay, right now this value here looks about as dark as this value here. Maybe here. We'll double check it. That's it. 14%, which means there's only 14% white in the image. So then we'll go up here. 10%, so it's pretty close. So on my own image, I can go in here with this darker value and double check what is it. Right now it says 9%, so I'm pretty close in this area. I could branch this value out more to make it match the image more. There's like this line right here. It's like a darker a darker chiseled part. Get that darker image, this darker bit will go in, and the shape of the arm is slightly off. My guy looks a little more muscular than this dude, but I'll worry about that later. One of the ways, one thing that this method helps with is it kind of frees you up from being afraid to like fix large things really quickly. Like if we're not, that's the other thing, we're not doing any, we haven't done undo. Haven't done any kind of undo button. And what that's doing is showing us that when there's issues we've created in our image unknowingly, they're not hard to just paint over and just fix it real quick. I mean, it's just as quick to like change like the curvature with my brush as it is to like pull out the transform tool. Now that's different if it's a full like color image and you've spent some time rendering an arm and it looks perfect, and then like you realize it's completely off with the angle of the body or something. Then I mean, no, use a transform tool. If it's work, it's work. Just get it done. I remember, like an hour is not a lot of time. It's not like a big. It's a decent amount of time, but like it's not a commitment. Like you say, you spent an hour on something. It's not that much time really. An hour is like a second. Like to spend an hour on something is nothing. So if you do spend an hour like drawing something out for a regular project for yourself, and you decide you need to change a massive bit of it, and just do it, because you've only spent an hour on it. It's not like you didn't spend all day. Noodling around with this to try and get the values to look better. There's a slightly more subtle gradation going on here that I don't have yet. Okay. So now I'm going to focus on the body of it. There's a reflected, let me highlight it for everyone, it's harder to see. If you have the image open on your computer, you can see it. But you're going to notice that there's like this slightly lighter bit right here. You can kind of see it here. So like I'm outlining a shadow, but the reason the shadow is shaped this way is because there's this reflected bounce light. So what you're seeing is that there is shadow here, and then this surface is reflecting light, and there's shadow here, and then this surface is reflecting light. And the same on the butt right here. Or like it's the thigh, it's not really the butt, but oops. Desaturate. There we go. If you missed that step, oh sorry, anyone I sent that link to, we desaturated the image. If you missed it earlier, that's something that's important to note. It's not a black and white image, so we desaturated it just so we could focus on values today. Today's study and focus is values. And yeah, that's what we're focusing on. And I gotta get this rib. And then there's like this other rib that's branching out from this shadow. And there's this other part. So I'll figure out the days we'll do the long studies. I'll kind of announce it ahead of time. And we'll just sit and draw something like this or paint it out for a while. But the long ones are more useful than the short ones. The short ones are good for like gesture drawing if you're trying to get the quick action. But even once you finish with that, you gotta actually draw the person. So the long sessions are best for fixing and correcting and really hashing out what's going on. You can really get an idea of like how this thing is working and why the light is hitting it at a certain way. So I'm kind of making a line here, but what I'm really doing is I'm putting down that tone, so when I put these other tones in, I can cut away and it'll give me that implied line. You can go in and just draw the line too, it doesn't matter. That's not the important part, it's just the fact that you noticed it is what's important. So this white's a little too white. And now this transition here is like terrible right now. Excuse me. So like I said, get your goal in mind, focus on what you want to do with your career or where you want to go, and have that kind of in your mind as you're working on this stuff. And then if you're ever feeling lazy in the morning and wondering like, maybe should I not do the study today? Just imagine yourself not achieving your dreams, and then go cry. But then get back onto studying. But anyway, you figured out that like ideally we all kind of figured out that we are going to have these up at different times. I'm kind of repeating myself now, but we're going to have these up at different times. Like I'm imagining, I don't know if CJ is live streaming now or not. I didn't ask him, and I can't see the chat. But he'll be doing, either he did it today with me, or he'll be doing some, if I can't for some reason get online to stream, like in the extenuating circumstance that I'm like on a road trip or something, and I can't stream what I'm doing for the study, then we'll have someone else kind of covering. But I'll still post out my study. I can still draw in a sketchbook or something. The music's just repeated over itself now. I'm gonna switch the track real quick. We'll do social network. Hello. CJ, no, right now I'll probably do one later today. Cool. I'm just saying it because people are here listening. But yeah. So anyway, there's 4 of us that are going to be monitoring like the lesson plans for the days, and we'll change them up. We might, one week might be completely different from the other week. It's not like super formal like that. And if someone has a certain focus they want to worry about, then we can switch it up and have a particular focus. Maybe one week is all about composition or something. And we do a lot more master studies and do a lot more composition breakdowns. But anyway, we got 9 minutes left, so let's make this count. Like I said before, one of the main things you gotta remember is just keep your pen, keep that stylus moving. Don't stop moving the stylus. The moment we say, okay, set a timer for an hour and just go, just do it. Just sit there and work. Don't worry about anything else. For an hour out of the day, it's good to just sit and practice. I'm kind of excited for some of the other guys that are going to come on and do some of these streams too, like what they're going to talk about and what their thought process is when they're working on this stuff. Because that's going to be one of the best parts about doing this, is that everyone has a different mindset going in. Like the way we operate is all different. So excuse me. So here we go. Some subtle blending here. The stomach area is super subtle as far as like what's going on. So typically whenever I'm doing these also, like, you gotta kind of ask yourself, like, what am I getting out of this? Like, what's the point of me drawing this? Like, why am I spending an hour doing this? And those little moments that I stopped and said things like, it looks like this value is the same as this value. And I kind of color picked to double check. those are the things I'm kind of, for me, I'm picking up information that I didn't realize. Like, some of these values are the exact same. Like, the value on the outside of this little divot on this side here is the same as this mid-tone here, whatever. That's important for me to pick up that little bitty bit of information, so later on when I'm doing my own drawing I can make some kind of like similar thing and go, oh, I remember that the value is going to be pretty close. It's not going to be a dramatic change. It's almost the same exactly. This is a good music to study to. It's that Social Network soundtrack. It's that that song where they're doing all the hacking and they're doing all the they're breaking into the girls' Facebook or their the sororities' Facebooks, and then making that program that compares the girls to the other girls. Face smash or whatever. And typically with these things, from what I've noticed, it's like these really extreme values. Those are the easy bits. It's all the subtle variations what really gets people. I mean, that's what it got me originally when I was really starting out. That's what, when I started realizing how subtle certain value changes are, and you can kind of start applying that to your work, and you realize, oh, it's like, it's not black and white. It's mainly just gray, 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 gray. And it's the use of gray and the variations of the gray that matter. I'll try and develop some kind of compositional breakdowns from this framed ink. We'll talk about what it goes over. I gotta read it though, so that's the issue. The issue is I haven't read it yet. We got about 3 minutes left. I'm not rushing it. That's the one thing that when I said we're doing this for an hour, don't rush anything. Don't speed through this. Just work on it for an hour. If you work slowly, work slowly. It's not the point. The point is to study. Studying is like, it's like any other kind of studying. It's like studying for math. You can't just rush through math. You got to sit there and do the problems. You have to solve the problems and get the answers. And then you got to double check and make sure you solved them correctly, or else you get a C on the test. I say C because I used to make fairly decent grades in math. The C was appalling. So this value is darker right here on this inside. We'll also do some like fabric studies and stuff. And some other material studies. Material studies would be good. Like, we'll do one where we just do like a picture of metal or something. Something that everyone always has issues with. Like wood, metal. Difference between the two. What we're noticing. Kind of pick up what exactly it is that's going on with the wood and the metal. Okay, so I don't know what time the video is going to go onto YouTube, but I do know that this will be on live stream for a while. I think it's going to stay on for like a couple months or something. But they might start deleting them as we keep doing them. If I'm doing an hour a day, it's going to add up. And we'll start losing our progress. But anyway. So this week I've kind of put out, I say this week, it's Friday, but like this next 7 days I kind of put out a plan, but we'll go over the exactly what we're going to be doing, and we'll probably change some stuff. And I think CJ, if you're still in here, you, me, and the two other guys will be moderators for that Google Doc, so other people can't really edit it, but they can view it, you know? It's a daily lesson plan doc. So other people could edit or comment. We'll give people the ability to comment on it, and then we'll kind of moderate it and kind of add in lessons as we need to, or change things if maybe everyone was requesting we do like a material study one day. We'll just say, okay, we'll do material study today instead of, we'll just do it together. That's the whole point, just doing it together. So there's some like major issues going on right here with this edge, because it should be a little closer in like this. Kind of fixed it, but it's not entirely fixed. Excuse me. We could probably also go over like a lesson, kind of more of a lesson of like using reference and stuff. You know, some people have trouble with that, like what that even means. And sometimes people have this idea that you shouldn't use reference, and I don't know where that came from. I've always heard, I mean, everyone uses reference. It's impossible to say someone doesn't use reference. Everyone uses reference. Some people use the same reference over and over again, and eventually they kind of learn it. They learn that one thing. But that's different. That's because they used reference so much, and they looked at things so often, did studies, that they mastered that one particular thing. Oh shit, the hour's up. We're 2 minutes past the hour. I accidentally set my alarm for 2 hours, I just noticed. Okay. So we're done here. This is as far as I'm going to go today. As I add some more values. I'm just fixing this one bit here, because this kind of draws attention here. But this video will be up on the live stream, and I'll throw it onto YouTube. My YouTube channel is my username is Mike086, so if you just look for that, you'll find me on YouTube. Mike086. I'll put up these videos as soon as I can. I'm probably not going to edit them at all. Probably just going to put them straight onto YouTube. So typically I'll try and like take out some bits that I like stop talking on or something. Or if like someone comes and kind of interrupts me while I'm doing the live stream, I normally cut that out, but I won't do that because they're going to be every day. It's going to be too hard to edit. I don't want this to be about me editing videos. I want this to be about getting the studies up so people can follow along. And it'll feel more like you were live with us if you have to wait for me to take a phone call or something. And we'll just use massive amounts of data up. Anyway. Okay. That's it for today. There we go. It's an hour. It's been a little bit over an hour. You can kind of see how far we got. Kind of compare. And I hope yours goes as well. I hope you learn a lot. I hope you're picking up information as you're doing this. If you're really feeling awesome, if you're feeling like the most awesome person, you should live stream your study the same way I did mine just now. And we'll start up a thread on the Crimson Daggers forum, and everyone can share their video, and you can share your image of what you did today. So let me just quickly sign this here with like my name. Let's say I'll do it up here where there's no detail. It looks like crap. I'm just going to do the type tool. But anyway, I'll post this on the forum in a thread. We'll call it the Daily Study Group, which I guess it's Crimson Dagger. Crimson Daggers was supposed to be like a daily study group. So, but this will be our daily study group thread. We'll put up our images and we'll put up our videos. What's the date? Let's see here. 3rd. (2014). Damn it. So, once we get the thread going, I encourage everyone to post their videos and or images. There we go. 1/3/14, and then ideally, if someone's doing them in the evening and no one else is, they can look back at the videos from the people that did them in the morning, and they can feel like they sat in with someone else and had this like group session, even though there's no group session, you know. Anyway. Yeah, but share your studies. Just we can see the progress. That's the whole point, right? And sorry, I'm just typing. But I'll get a thread going, and you know, so everyone kind of participate. If you don't participate, cool. We'll just get way better than you. But you know, the whole point is that we're gonna all get better together, right? So that's the point. So let's do that. I just gotta brand everything with my name and logo, or my name and my website. Just, that's not for the public either. That's for y'all. Okay, and I'll post up my my studies on my website. I have a blog on my website, so if you go there, you can see them at it's a different location to see them. That's all. So. There we go. can't read that at all. Yeah, anyway, I'm just fiddling around with my colors on this thing. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, so it's just taking forever for me to do this, but I'll post it up. Thanks for joining me, and we'll keep doing this, and we'll become better at what we do, and ideally, all of us will become too busy to continue this because we'll be so busy doing work. Save as. On the thread, on the okay, so here we go. It's the 3rd, January 3rd, 2014. Alright, one a day. I'll post it up on YouTube later. People can follow along. Thanks for joining me. I'll do my little thing where I make like an outro music. Sounds good, man. I'm just gonna turn up this music now and try and get my levels going on this thing. So thanks for joining again. I will talk to people later.